tournament. Right now, we have by phone Blizzard Entertainment's Brian Holinka and Kim Phan. Are you there, guys? Brian and Kim, are you there?
Yes, we are.
Oh, hello, wow. I'm here.
Hello, hello, hello. So excited for you guys to be here.
Well, we're super excited to be here. We're just absolutely loving all the excitement, seeing everybody in chat. You know, it's just there's so much excitement around the event, and you know, you guys are doing a great job putting it together. Just really excited to see the games and see how everybody does.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, I thank you to Blizzard first of all for such big support for live entertainment in the Armageddon tournament, and you know, just for PvP and esports in general. Thank you. We'll get right into this. Kim Phan, you know, tell us who you are and what you do for Blizzard.
Well, my name is Kim Phan, and I am the Senior Manager of Esports at Blizzard. And I pretty much lead the esports team here in the Irvine office, and we support all of our franchises. So from StarCraft 2 to World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, and then now hopefully coming up soon, Heroes.
Yeah, that's. I'm pretty sure everyone is super excited for Heroes as well. You know, describe for our viewers exactly what the esports department is, and you know how they play a role at Blizzard.
So the esports team is mostly, focused on esports, any kind of esports aspect that there is to our games. So, you know, most people know StarCraft 2 from what we do in esports, but we've also been supporting World of Warcraft as well for the 3v3 arena. And really what our job is, it varies in a lot of different ways. We are always working with our partners. For anyone who wants to run a tournament in World of Warcraft, they reach out to us. So just such as yourself. We also host events like at BlizzCon, so any type of big tournaments, we handle that. And then mostly just listening to what the community is saying and what they need or features that they want. And we meet with the development teams very regularly to kind of provide that feedback and push for the things that, you know, esports needs in order to make the game more easier to watch or for people to follow.
Well, you know, it's really great to see, you know, a gaming company's team put so much dedication into esports. So that's super exciting for, you know, the viewers and as well as tournament organizers. You know, with insane growth of esports in recent years and Blizzard being directly at the forefront with games like StarCraft 2, how has this explosion in popularity influenced any decisions or had any impact on the direction of World of Warcraft PvP?
It definitely has. I mean, WoW has been around for a long time, and the esports landscape has changed quite a bit since WoW has been out. And so just how people perceive esports now and how supportive people are, it's definitely making us change kind of our look and what we need to do. But because, you know, WoW, the features are already out. So if there's anything that people are expecting now to make that viewing experience better that WoW doesn't have, those are the things that we're having to evaluate, you know, such as Spectator Mode. And, you know, Brian is super dedicated to PvP, as you guys know.
Oh, yeah.
And so we are definitely looking into ways where how can we really focus on World of Warcraft as an esports. And what I would probably say out there to the community, you know, we do really listen and we really want to know what it is that you guys want to see. So what I would like to throw back out there for you is don't limit yourself to just PvP. Obviously, we love it. It's the most competitive aspect of World of Warcraft, but we're really open to seeing what else we can do out there and how we can better support WoW esports. So let us know if you have any ideas of things that you do like to see in WoW. And, you know, Brian could probably talk a little bit more on some ideas that we have. I don't know, Brian, if we're ready to even share some of our ideas, but we're definitely thinking about some really cool things.
Well, like you said, Kim, I think the real root of it and the real core of it is what do players want to see? What do players want to rally around? What is it that interests them? WoW is a very big game. Unlike a lot of other esports out there, you know, there's only one real component of multiplayer in those games. World of Warcraft is a giant game. Even PvP is a very big thing. You know, there's battlegrounds from 40 to 10 players. There's arenas from 2, 3, and 5s. There's just a lot going on in the game, and it has a lot to offer. And we've always focused on 3v3 arena. But, you know, maybe the player base wants more. They want to see other things too. And, you know, we do things like the live raid at Blizzard BlizzCon, and those are some pretty cool, exciting things, and players are interested in them. So we just really want to hear from players, like, hey, obviously we love doing Arena, and players respond to that, and then they love watching Arena. What else? Let's see what else we can offer, and we think it could be pretty cool to really have this full suite of things that players are interested in.
Brian, you announced competitive war games complete with gear and spectator mode, and it's obvious how easily this lends a hand to Arena as an esport. What were some of the deciding factors that went into developing these platforms?
Well, for me, this is very much a social, very much a community feature, in the sense that there are community entities like yourselves or a lot of the big guilds, PvP guilds, and they want to host tournaments for the whole community to rally around, for people to get together. I mean, you can just see the excitement, like in your own chat. I mean, it's awesome to see like all these different personalities, and the players are like, give us the games, give us the games. Right. So, on one hand, it's like, they're just hungry. They're hungry to watch this stuff. Players and our community are really excited about that. And when you see that type of passion and around these types of events, it's like, man, we are not doing enough to provide these people the tools they need to run these events. We got to give it to them. And so it's kind of, in the past, what did we do? We stood up tournament arena realms, we gave access. Why can't players do this on live servers? They should be able to. We provide so many great tools for people to have role-playing servers and perform those types of activities, and we protect that. Let's give players the opportunity to run PvP events. And I think the desire that they have are things like the ability to do a spectate mode, to have spectators in a match, and the ability to just quickly get everybody, hey, this is the gear we're using, and we're on a level playing field, go. So that is what I think this brings us to. It also is one of those things where we feel like the people who are using it are very sophisticated, in terms of being able to set up an event and invite different people. So it allows us to create a system that may not be for the average player, but allows us to get it in quickly and hear back really quick on, hey, this is what we need to make the experience better when running tournaments.
And another thing I'm going to add to that is that I don't think that this explosion of esports has only influenced Blizzard. It definitely has impacted some of our other third-party partners as well. We've had other partners interest now back in World of Warcraft. We've been reached out by MLG, for example, asking to know more about what other tools that we're putting in place to better support esport, and it's a possibility for them to bring it back into their circuit, and so that's also a really big positive.
Brian, can we expect to see any kind of, expansion on these systems? For example, the ability to set dampening, or the ability to set when dampening starts. Is that something you guys have in the works, or?
Not at this time. It wasn't planned for release. Probably one of the things that we've really been working towards is trying to remove a lot of these external tuning knobs out of the game as much as possible. It used to be you didn't need dampening because players ran out of mana, and a lot of that efficiency's kind of gone away, and you especially see it as we reach the end of the expansions levels, gear levels, where people just have so much spirit they're never really running out of mana. So we've had to kind of be forced from a gameplay standpoint to kind of put things in like dampening. So I think moving forward, if we feel like those things are still necessary, that might be something for us to open up in more games and let players configure that. But I also feel like it's kind of in the best interest of the viewer, a spectator, to kind of have a pretty consistent rule set. I mean, it would be pretty bizarre if you were watching a football game and the ACC has 12-minute quarters, but the Big Ten, they play 15 minutes. Right. It could be a little flaky. So if it's demand for it and it's relatively easy for us to do, we'll try and do that. One thing I think a lot of people don't understand about game design is it's as much about prioritizing features as coming up with features, evaluating how much work they do, and what do we get, what do we lose, and that's just one of those things where we're doing everything we can. And we're getting so much great support from guys like Tom Chilton and J. Allen Brack to really do a lot of this stuff. That it's been exciting for us to get these features in, and that's why I'm super excited about Spectator. I think it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, I think pretty much everyone's really excited about Spectator Mode, especially tournament organizers and such. What can you say? Me and Azale were kind of talking earlier about how PvP to the general viewer is somewhat difficult to get into. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, is there any plans to make it maybe a little easier for the average viewer to understand what's going on in PvP high arena play?
Yeah, I would agree with him. I think there's definitely a challenge there. I think you have a lot of presentation problems in WoW, and a lot of it has to do with like UI and whatnot. There's awesome mods out there like the Arena Live mod by Vadric that are players coming up with how they think they can improve that presentation. And I think when you see what we're doing with the Spectator Wargame mode, that's going to even empower those guys even more to come up with really awesome presentation platforms for WoW Arena. It could also just be said that, and I think this is a big debate that I started on Twitter one day, that, Team Deathmatch, it's missing a layer that you see in a lot of other games. Sure, there are games like Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, and they have a lot of, TDM is a big part of their esports community. But, in WoW, it could take 15 minutes for somebody to die. And that's from a spectator viewpoint. That can be, a long time between beats of excitement.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the very sophisticated player, he understands all the spells that are being thrown around, the crowd control, the cooldowns, defensive cooldowns, and Jared and Isaac, they do a great job of letting you know, hey, this guy's in trouble because cooldown is down, so let's see if they, switch to him. But that can be challenging for your average viewer. You watch a football game, I keep going to football, I could try hockey, but you watch one of those games and there's this higher layer of kind of like complexity of what's going on in the objectives, and the new player can kind of watch that and follow that. In WoW, it's really, you're watching those health bars, and then you're watching the mechanics, the comps play and the mechanics and the balance play out. So I think that can be pretty challenging for a new player. So I don't know. I think, like I said, that's one of those things where, we throw it back at the players. Let us know what you think would be interesting to you. Like I said, we have a lot of things already going on in World of Warcraft. I think that the people who love Arena aren't going to go away, so Arena isn't going to go away. But I think we could expand. This is not it's let's expand this, not like let's replace this. Let's look at all the cool things, because Arena is cool and it's got a great following. What else could have a great following? Right.
Well, I mean, you guys heard it right from Brian Holinka. Send them suggestions. They're listening. Give them feedback. They're open to change. With Hearthstone coming out with its own Spectator client, are you guys kind of developing a standardized Spectator feature across all Blizzard's franchises? Is that something you guys are working on?
No, the teams work fairly independently. Okay. I'm not even, quite honestly, up to speed on what Hearthstone is doing from a spectator standpoint. Right. So our tech is very different from their tech.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think the way you view each of the things is also very different too. So I don't think that a standard UI to support all the games actually makes sense in that case.
It kind of has to change from franchise to franchise, basically.
Yep.
Kim, how does this tug of war between watchability and playability affect the design process as far as balance, tuning, and mechanics go?
Well, I think the great thing is that having someone like Brian be so active on Twitter, he's actually exposed to a lot of the feedback that you guys are giving him. And so that's really great. And I think that in terms of answering that question in the design process, usually the esports team is really trying to gather or driving or pushing for the features that we feel really needs to be implemented into the game to help support esport. But I think with Brian being so involved, he's actually hearing it firsthand from you guys. So when we're in those meetings, we're already on the same page, and we're already talking about how can we improve some of the features and some of the design. And so that process is probably the best it's ever been now. And so I think it's really good and it's positive.
Yeah, and I think first and foremost, the game probably has to be fun to play before it's fun to watch, because players, that's why they're drawn to it. They're drawn to relating to what they're watching. So for us, it's very important that the game is fun to play first, and then players who want to be invested in it and interested in it, they're going to kind of tell us what's could be improved in terms of presentability.
Right. And I think that's where you see the tug of war happen, where Brian's always pushing and focusing on playability, and I would say the esports team, we're always pushing and focusing on watchability, because we want everyone to be able to watch and enjoy the game. And Brian's priority is, of course, making sure there are people who will be willing to play it.
Yep.
So.
Brian, you keep on making a lot of football references. So, when looking at traditional sports, people root for their favorite teams or players and, follow them as diehard fans, right? So, how important to the future of WoW as an esport do you see making these players household names?
Well, I think that the events kind of do that. I mean, as much as I love like the Bills, it's really up to the Bills to get their following up. I certainly am trying to do a lot on Twitter to try and help promote people. I try to jump in their streams from time to time, answer some questions, and kind of draw some general interest to those guys. Some people don't need it. Some people are doing just exceptional on their own. I don't know. I think that's honestly something that's kind of new to me. What's so great for me is, I've come from a competitive multiplayer background, and having all this access to people like Kim and Trevor and the other folks at the esports department, they have all this experience with that stuff. And so honestly, I'm asking them, I'm learning from them on questions like this. So, I don't know how we handle that in the past. I've seen we do so many cool, awesome projects with like the trading cards for StarCraft 2 and whatnot. And, it's really something I'm personally want to learn a little bit more about.
Yeah, there's just so much that is involved in the esports ecosystem, I think, to really get it to the level where you can compare it to professional sports. You have to have a great competitive game, and then you need people who are playing at the professional level. But most importantly, you need the community. You need the community that wants to watch it, right? So there's no reason, you can have the best players in the world, but if one is not easy to watch or people are not watching it, then there's not a big purpose for them to play, which makes it harder for them to find sponsors, which, how can they get the team houses and stuff like that? Exactly. So it's all integrated in a way, and I think everybody kind of just needs to play their part, and that's how we can get it there. And so another thing that Brian and I talk a lot about too is that with esports where it is now, it's really hard to not be compared to some of the already successful esports games out there. StarCraft 2 is probably one of our most successful esports game. And then there's many other out there. And so to have like WoW or any game that comes out be compared and is expected to meet those expectations of esports, I think makes it really challenging. And people forget that esports started very organically, and it needs to start small. So if you try to come out the gate expecting to be at the same level as the more popular esports games out there, then I think that it makes it very hard. And so the approach that we're taking with World of Warcraft is to try and figure out what are the smaller things that we can do to grow that community and grow that focus and attention, so that it can get to the point where it's really, really big.
What do you guys think are some of the biggest challenges to bringing a nearly 10-year-old game now into the esports spotlight?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is the tools. I didn't think the tools for you guys were all that great, and I think that was the biggest challenge. There is a game out there that people are interested in watching and playing, which is Arena, and we just weren't providing great tools for you to do it. So I think that's one problem we've really tried to focus on fixing. Now that we fixed that problem, I feel like we kind of wait and see how it plays out and see what the next thing we need to do is. What's our next big challenge there?
Kim, it's obviously kind of a challenge for the game developers to make the game fresh and exciting again with each new expansion released. How do you tackle that from an esports angle?
Well, I think that we go back to Brian needs to make the game fun. Like I put it on him first, so every time they add features into the expansion, we're hoping that we're keeping the community engaged and that people are still enjoying it and wanting to play it. And I think that's typically our approach and priority with all our game development process, really, is just making sure the game is very fun to play and people want to play it. And then esports is that extension that just builds off that experience. So not only are you having fun playing the game, but then now when you're not playing it, you can watch it and talk about it and experience it in that way. So I would definitely say that esports is that added experience to the game.
And I think there's a lot of overlap. I think maybe that's something that's missing is, for a game to be a good esport, it needs to be balanced. For a game to be a good, fun, competitive experience, it needs to be balanced. For players to keep coming back and watching it, they want to see new, fresh content. Same thing goes for the game. People want fresh, new content. I mean, it's very interesting to me to watch, the responses we get to balance changes or the lack of balance changes. Like, we make a balance change, people get upset about the changes that get made. Don't make any. People are like, the game is starting to feel stale. So, in both respects, people want some variety in the content that they're playing and viewing, and so that overlap is important. So in that sense, I don't think we directly have to say, hey, we need to make some changes for the sake of esports here. It's like, esports is going to benefit from the things we do to make the game fun for our players, and players will rally around a game that they love, and they will come and watch events about that game, and that's what I think we're seeing here today.
Right. The hiring of Brian, yourself, in the fact that your public presence is so open and accessible has shown, Blizzard's kind of firm and continuing commitment to growing the PvP side of the game. And, we can't help but notice, Kim, your public presence has been growing lately, doing interviews and such. Does this hint at the future of Blizzard's commitment to esports? Outside of outside of the StarCraft franchise.
Oh, definitely. I mean, all the things we're talking about today already are about how we can grow esports for World of Warcraft. So I would say the answer is yes.
Yeah. Simply put, I guess, Brian, now to some easier questions I think everyone wants to know. How often do you actually sit down and just play PvP with your friends, your guild? I mean, what's your daily? Obviously, you're working constantly, but I mean, how many hours yourself do you put into PvP, arena, BGing, or whatever?
I try to do a variety of content. I run a rated battlegrounds group with a bunch of guild mates and friends. I play arenas with those same guild mates. I play arenas at work and cap with another guy here in 2s and 3s at lunchtime. Usually, I'm a family man, so usually I have to get my games in after the kids go to bed. So that's somewhere in the 9 to 12 time. But I pretty much play all the time, 5 to 6 a week, from like 9 to 12 or whatnot, and nearly almost every lunch. The real challenge I have is, as much as playing World of Warcraft is important, I think designers have to play other games too. It's important. I'm trying to play Titanfall, Stick of Truth, Strider, all these games right now that you can learn so much about, so many lessons from other games, that it's super important. Things I learned from just playing like Batman Arkham Asylum back in the day, or Bastion or Limbo. I had this renaissance where in the year that I wasn't playing World of Warcraft, when I took some time off from it, and I played a lot of other games, and I learned a lot. So I learned that that's an important thing for a game designer to do, is if you get too tunneled into your own game, there can be problems. So certainly, I do a ratings push at the end of the season like everybody. I push for, I was pushing for my mounts, my vicious mounts at the end of last season. I have as many alts. I think last season I played about 6 characters, about 8 specs. So, everybody who complains to me about how long it takes to cap alts, I really have no sympathy for them. I play a lot.
Right.
I guess the bottom line.
Obviously you guys have announced a lot of different changes coming up in Warlords of Draenor, but how do you think the interrupts and other integral PvP mechanics need to be reworked, specifically in the context of Warcraft Arena as a competitive esport?
Yeah, well, I think what we've seen for Warlords of Draenor is we made a lot of changes we felt were good for the game in terms of understanding. One thing that I've really been trying to do is expand the participation rate of PvP without hurting the game that so many PvPers love. Now, I'm sure Twitch chat probably blows up at me saying that, like, buff red paladins, but
sure.
It's very much the case that there are things that are very odd, like the way that crowd control diminishing returns works is kind of this really alien concept to so many people. It's very hidden, but it's like one of the most important things about competitive PvP. It's what really drives what comps work, what comps don't, what spells are powerful, what aren't. So those are the things we'd like to make. I want to say it's really, there's some words you have to be very careful using, but we want to make it a less complex system. You can have complex systems where you just have complexity for complexity's sake, and that's not good. When complexity is interesting and provides depth, that's good. But I think we've gotten to a case with a lot of our PvP mechanics where we just have unneeded complexity, and same with our spells and whatnot. So it's going to be a very different landscape in Warlords. We've announced so many changes. If you look at any of those changes and you make the one change in the game that you're playing now, it doesn't make any sense. The game it's going to feel very new, very different in Warlords. I feel like in a lot of ways we're going to almost be starting from ground zero with balance but I think this time around, and I know some players are jaded with the promises that we make, but this is the first time I've made this promise that we're going to spend a lot of time iterating on what's working, what's not. We're going to try and get a lot of feedback from a lot of those players who are very good at the game, that are also, have a very balanced opinion and give very good feedback and play a lot of classes and have a great sense of the overarching game. Guys, like Isaac, for example, who've really been great for us in the past, getting feedback. So, my goal was to make PvP an even bigger part of WoW, and I feel like we're moving in that direction.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think a lot of the viewers out there are going to be excited to hear that. Last question. Who are you predicting to win Armageddon? Any predictions, either of you?
I have a team I'm cheering for. I'm cheering for the Brazilian team, so we are clear. I think they're backed up by an amazing community, and I think most people are probably cheering for Skill Capped, but sure. For me, I want to see the Brazilian team do well.
Brian, how about yourself?
Yeah, certainly I love the fact that we're seeing guys like the Brazilian team, have this following. These guys, we've never really been represented in a tournament before. So, best of luck to them. I hope they do great. They're fan favorites, guys like Chameleon. I think it's going to be kind of a matchup between Skill Capped and Three Amigos in the final. That's my prediction, but we'll see. Those guys are just the ones that have the most experience. There have been some changes to LSD since BlizzCon, some bug fixes here or there. So it may be interesting to see, what comes out of that and if there's something different. But I'm very excited. I'm just watching stream chat go crazy for what people are excited for. There's so many fan favorites, and really going to be an exciting weekend.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to do this interview. We honestly super appreciate it. Brian, Holinka, and Kim Phan from Blizzard Entertainment. Thanks, guys. After this, we will be coming right back with the matches.